Yuli Yoel Edelstein, accompanied by Miri Yachim, Chief of the Protocol. Please be seated. Good evening, distinguished guests. The Knesset, the Israeli Parliament, is honored to welcome you, members of the delegation hosted by the International Council of Jewish Parliamentarians, Icjp. U.S. Congressman Eliot Engel is chairman of the Icjp and is leading the delegation of 12 parliamentarians, representatives from North America, Latin America, Europe, and Eurasia. 9 different countries are represented here. The World Jewish Congress, WJC, facilitates this important initiative, and Icjp operates in coordination with the Knesset, the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and World Jewish Congress. The Icjp is a global network of Jewish legislators, government ministers, and other elected officials. Its aim is to promote the principles of democracy, the cause of human rights, and to combat together racism, anti-Semitism, xenophobia, terrorism, and Holocaust denial. Personally involved with this initiative is Speaker of the Knesset, Yuli Yoel Edelstein. Speaker of the Knesset, please.
Good evening. At least I thought you would be given something to eat before I speak. The rules are very hard. Distinguished Chairman of the International Council of Jewish Parliamentarians, Honorable Eliot Engel, welcome to you and all the distinguished members of Parliament from all around the world. Mr. Robert Zinger, thank you very much. In your name, give my thanks to the World Jewish Congress and its president for picking this initiative at a difficult time, let's put it this way, and continuing with it and reviving it. Distinguished ambassadors, thank you for coming and joining us. Members of Knesset who are joining us at different tables. It's really an honor and privilege to greet you here in the Knesset, well, I nearly said in the Jewish Parliament, but I guess I'll get myself into trouble. In the Parliament of the Jewish State of Israel, with all the other minorities represented here, respected and having their voice. And I, for one, always remind myself that we shouldn't take it for granted, because we all remember that 68 years ago when the State of Israel was born, we were in a pretty tough situation. And quote unquote normal development could, God forbid, be that the people those days, the 600,000 that we had here, would say we are in a very difficult period of time. We have to create a state, we have to fight back all the countries that are invading us right now, we have to start building economy. We'll leave all these democratic games for later. All these parliaments and opposition and all these speeches, they will come later. Thank God it never happened. Thank God from the very first meeting, and we still have the protocols, the snoogy opposition started criticizing what was not even government yet, and started explaining to it that they don't have the power to do this and they don't have the authority to do that. And for 68 years, we never, thank God, left that track of democracy. I'm starting with that because life presents us with different challenges. And of late, on my visits to Europe and to other parts of the world, with all this terrible wave of Islamic terrorism hitting different countries, I'm always asked, so you in Israel unfortunately have a lot of experience in that. What would your advice be? And my advice is always the same. I think that what I wish to all the democracies that are unfortunately facing the same problem, and they will be facing the same problem in the near future, is to find the right balance. To find the right balance, and it's easy to say and very difficult to do, to find the right balance between running a democracy that is as perfect as one can think, and combating terrorism without, for 1 minute, for 1 second, letting the terrorists use the rules of the democratic game in order to ruin the democracy. I think that this is the challenge we've been living with for a long period of time pretty successfully. I sincerely hope that other countries will be able to balance in the same way, and for all of us together to be able to join forces and fight back this terrible, ugly wave that unfortunately is covering more and more parts of this world. I think, my colleagues, that if we speak about the challenges we are all facing, and I started already probably with one of the most difficult ones, they are numerous. They are numerous for us as parliamentarians, they are numerous for us as Jewish parliamentarians. One of them, already mentioned by our Master of Ceremonies, is combating global anti-Semitism. And I think that I won't reveal anything new to you if I would say that anti-Semitism, unfortunately without disappearing, is putting on different masks. Today, in many cases, it's the mask of anti-Israelism. No, you can't be an anti-Semite and be an editor-in-chief of a prominent newspaper, or an elected official in a democratic country, or you name it, head of an academic institution. But criticizing Israel is okay. And criticizing Israel, by the way, is okay. And you should have heard me sometimes criticizing the Israeli government when I'm not part of the coalition, but rather part of the opposition. Ooh, I think I could easily be accused of anti-Semitism. That's definitely not true. Criticizing Israel is okay. Saying that the state of Israel doesn't have the right to exist is really not okay. BDS is not okay. And I think that double standards are not okay. And all these things that we are unfortunately facing in different countries, we read about them in the newspapers that, for me, once upon a time in the former Soviet Union, were the symbol of democracy, were the symbol of the freedom of speech. And all of a sudden, in those very newspapers, I read about Israeli soldiers, things that I somehow haven't seen around in my whole life in this country, and I promise you no one has ever seen these things, even after many, many years in the Israeli combat units. So this is one of our mutual tasks. And one may rightly say, with all due respect, sir, thanks for hosting us here in the Knesset. And yes, I am a proud Jewish parliamentarian. I don't represent the state of Israel. I represent my country. This is a pretty correct statement. And one thing I would like to make quite clear, I think that fighting against these issues is not fighting for the state of Israel. It's fighting for democracy. It's fighting for a better world. Because if all kinds of BDS will be able to do these things to the state of Israel, I can't tell you who's next. But the next one will come. As they say, it always starts with Jews, never ends with Jews. So I think that any parliamentarian, definitely a Jewish parliamentarian, not only has the perfect right to oppose these issues, I think it's our duty to oppose these issues. It's our duty to get involved in this fight. And many people around the world do, and I hope that in the end we'll be successful. I hope that in the end will prevail. And I think that touching on another issue that is not anti-Semitism. It's a political issue, but it's a very good example of how singling out and how using double standards can hurt populations that they will never have been meant to be the target of this or that move. And I'm definitely talking about the recent decision of the European Union about labeling Israeli products. It's a legitimate political move. It's not BDS, it's not anti-Semitism. I don't have any doubt about it. I think it's just the stupidest political move one can think about. And I have the perfect right to think so for at least two reasons. For at least two reasons. One is, I know who's going to suffer. We are leading a real battle to try to explain to our Palestinian neighbors that they shouldn't take to the path of terrorism, that they should try to live in coexistence with us, that they should try to explain to the younger generation that taking a knife and stabbing an old woman doesn't bring any solution. If, God forbid, there will be European countries that will implement this decision, this, as I've said, strange decision of the European Union, the ones to suffer will be thousands of innocent Palestinian families that are working hard in industrial zones in Barkan and Kfar Adumim and all kinds of other areas. These industrial zones are one of the very few hopes that we have for future coexistence. Because you can go there and see Jews and Arabs working shoulder to shoulder. Arabs in many cases being the bosses of the Jews because they've been around for many years. And it's fine with everyone. Arabs, Palestinians making a nice salary. It's more than fine with everyone. They will be the ultimate victim, or the ultimate target of this decision of the European Union that I hope will never be implemented. To say nothing about other things, like, for example, that it includes the Golan Heights. And from the very first day I've heard about the decision, I'm still looking for someone to give the Golan Heights to. Always asking for advice. If I'm so influenced by that decision of the boycott or labeling products, and I want to make a step towards the European Union, and I want to get rid of that Golan Heights that is so terrible that we have to label products from there, whom exactly shall I give it to? To Assad? To ISIS? Who is the recipient, please? Somehow, no one ever came out with a very good advice on that issue, but they still say the decision of labeling products from the Golan Heights is very important. Anyway, I think that I started with a lot of challenge, which is okay. That's how things work in any parliament and in the Knesset. We seldom talk about wonderful issues. When everything is wonderful, people don't bring these issues to the floor. When problems have to be taken care of, we do take care of them. And I'll sum up with something that still gives me hope. I think that parliamentarians and parliaments have a great role to play in the future development in this area and in the world in general. Governments, in many cases, are unable to provide immediate answers. And I understand it. Being, as some of you here in this room, a former cabinet minister, I understand the pressure. When two foreign ministers, to say nothing about prime ministers, get into the room with their counterparts, they have to get out with a signed document, an immediate statement, an immediate solution to some problem. With parliamentarians, it's a little bit different. And we can start developing cooperation on real issues. Issues of energy, sustainability, agriculture, water resources that are very important in this area. And we don't need to provide the immediate solution to what happens to the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, or where exactly the borders would be, or what happens with the status of the holy places. But the moment we start cooperating, and the moment there will be progress, probably finally we'll see some light in the end of the tunnel. Probably finally we'll be able to give some meaning to this wonderful expression, trust-building measures. What are the trust-building measures if not this cooperation? By the way, let's be brutally honest. I'm not pretending I'll be working for someone else's constituents. I'm not asking anyone to work for my constituents. But by cooperating, we'll make lives of our constituents better. Once again, easy to say, difficult to implement. So it happened that you were a witness of one of these attempts to bring some
counterparts from different parliaments in the area. It was in New York when we had a very nice meal in the evening with the president of IPU, who was working very hard to make sure that myself and Elliot and 3 or 4 speakers of different parliaments would also enjoy the company of some speakers of parliaments from this area. Somehow they agreed, and somehow 5 minutes before dinner it turned out that they had previous engagements, so they couldn't attend. But we will continue trying, because without it there is no future. We will continue trying, and I can ask you on every occasion that we have, continue trying. Tell them that this terrible Speaker of the Knesset that doesn't believe in labeling and doesn't believe that peace is around the corner and tomorrow we'll sign comprehensive peace agreements. This terrible Speaker of the Knesset believes in peace and believes in cooperation, and the door is wide open. And whoever comes from any parliament in our area, I'll sit down with him. I promise you that all of my colleagues who are here, by the way, from the opposition and the coalition, will sit down with him, her, and we'll start discussing real issues for the better future of the region, for the better future of our children, for the better future of our countries, not just my country, of our countries. This is the message I want to leave you with, and I'll again welcome you, and I'll wish you a very successful meeting here, and please continue with this wonderful initiative that I've been witnessing and participating in for many years, and I'm very proud to welcome you this time in my new capacity as the Speaker of the Knesset. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Speaker of the Knesset Yuli Edelstein. First course will be served now, so we are all ready for some more inspiring speeches later on. בתיאבון, bon appétit. Thank you.